This is the OMG Books Show with William O'Day, episode number 1.
Welcome to the OMG Books Show, where it's all about taking you into the brains of fantastic authors. No scalpels required. It's more than an interview, it's an experience. And now, your host, William O'Day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is your host, William O'Day, and I wanted to just say thank you. Thank you for joining me on this, the inaugural episode number 1. It's going to be way better than The Phantom Menace, I promise you. And if you don't know what that is, trust me, you got lucky. So this being the first episode of the OMG Book Show, you're probably wondering, what is this whole thing about? What's going to happen in this ear enchilada that I'm about to experience? Well, the idea behind the show is I wanted to bring people closer to the authors that write books that make us as readers think, say, or shout like, OMG, this is amazing. This just blew my mind. And OMG could mean a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts. It's in some cases it can change your life. And we'll actually hear a little bit about that today with our first guest. It's just that great writing feels like magic. And on this show, we're going to get a chance to meet the magicians. So each guest will be on about 30 minutes. And during these interviews, there will be moments where we get serious and other moments where we get silly. And we're going to figure out what makes these authors tick and what makes their amazing stories talk to readers just like you and I. Speaking of the silly moments, we're going to have a segment on each and every show called the Rorschach Round. When you hear this music, that means we've started the Rorschach Round, where we ask ambiguously odd questions to delve deeper into the minds of these amazing authors. It's probably going to get weird, I'm just warning you. So let's get started with our first guest, whom I am super excited to bring to you. His name is Dirk Patton. He is the best-selling author of a incredibly, insanely long series named the V-Plague or Voodoo Plague series. And I think there are around 17 books. I believe a recent one just came out, but around 17 books in the series. And then he started another couple of series that, as will be revealed in the interview to a degree, could be related to the existing series. And that's not the only thing we find out in this interview, because Dirk reveals to us a deep, dark secret that no one has ever heard before. At least that's how he describes it, and I'm going to take him at his word. So, surgical gloves on, scalpel in hand, let's get started with Dirk Patton. I mean, his name even sounds like a superhero. So we're here with Dirk Patton today, storyteller extraordinaire and author with more fans than you can shake a stick at. Dirk, thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to speak with you.
Awesome. So obviously you're an amazing storyteller. I mean, you've got 20 books out and tons of fans, but it all had to start somewhere. So please, take us for a trip down memory lane back in the murky past where your storytelling got started. What got you hooked on it?
Oh, wow. You ask one of the more difficult questions to answer without talking for too long, but I'll do my best.
Oh, well, we'll stick with you.
Okay. All right. So I first wanted to be a storyteller. I can remember as far back as elementary school, being on summer break and going to the grocery store with my mother and begging her to let me buy a notepad and a pencil so I could write stories.
Wow, you wanted to get there early. Okay.
I did. That was a passion of mine. I cannot tell you why. It just kind of came about, and through elementary, junior high, I was constantly writing short stories, always writing things. I've always been a bit of a geek as far as I read anything I can get my hands on, fiction, nonfiction, you name it. Got into high school, got into football and girls, so the storytelling kind of went by the wayside for a while.
Oh, wait, I know the feeling that I had that same story too.
Yeah. So, but I survived that, got out of high school, spent a chunk of my life in uniform. Lots of ideas come out of that, but of course never had time to do anything with them. And then the whole family thing came along, and marriage and a mortgage. And then, I would say this was 5 years ago, 5 to 6 years ago. I changed jobs with the company I was working for, and I was traveling weekly, air travel. and I'm in Arizona, so I was traveling to Atlanta. I was traveling to Tennessee on pretty much a weekly basis. And when you do that much traveling, you spend a lot of time in airports and hotel rooms, and you get bored. And so to pass the time, I just started writing a story. And what really got me going was, I remember I'm in Atlanta, and if you go back to Unleashed, which is the first book I published, that's the first book in my V-Plague series.
That was back in 2013, I think. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm in this hotel in Atlanta, pretty much exactly the way it's described in the book. And I got up, had an early morning breakfast meeting. So I got up early, go hit the gym, grab a shower before I had to go sit all day in a conference room. And I remember looking out the hotel room and seeing there's this swampy area. And I remember watching a couple of guys in waders moving through the swamp, which was probably about waist deep to them. And there is this layer of mist hanging on top of the water, mist, fog, whatever you want to call it. Never found out what they were doing, but whatever it was, and because of the water and their movement, it just was so eerily reminiscent of a shambling zombie, like out of The Walking Dead or a George Romero movie. And it's, as I'm standing there, the thought just goes through my head, okay, if this crap is really real, if it ever occurred, I'm 2,000 miles from home. What the hell would happen? What would I do?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's, I have the same situation, and kind of, my first book is just imagining, like, well, here I am. What would happen to me and my family? That's kind of what got you started, it sounds like?
Precisely. And I've just continued with that approach. As I approach every new book, and even all the scenes within a book, I approach it as, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And if that did happen, how would I react? How would I respond? And the story unfolds for me when I look at it in that manner. And it's kind of interesting because I know a lot of authors that I've talked to have sat down and tried to map out a book, or not tried, I shouldn't say, have mapped out the entire story arc for a book or even a series of books.
Right. And
if that works for an author, that's terrific. If I tried to do that, I think my books would read like a college text.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I had to read a few of those. Please don't subject the world to more.
No. Been there, done that. I'm with you. So with a long answer, that's kind of how I got started. Published my very first book more on a whim. I had zero expectations. In fact, if it wasn't for Amazon Kindle for independent publishers, I never would have done anything with it. I wouldn't have made an effort to go find a literary agent. I wouldn't have tried to get a publisher or do anything. But because I could just publish, and I published what I frankly thought was, okay, this is how I've entertained myself sitting in hotel rooms and airport waiting lounges.
Well, I have read, I think I mentioned it in a chat before, but I've read your first book there and a couple after. I'm still catching up, and we'll get to that. You have a long stretching series, which is, to me as an author, and I'm sure to readers and definitely in the reviews I read, it's just incredible, the kind of energy and continuing story that you're able to bring. I mean, how many books do you have in this series right now?
I've got 15 that are in the main series. I've got one short story and one novella that are related to it, that are kind of backstories on one of the characters. And I am in the midst of book 16, which is pretty close to being first draft completed. That's amazing. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was reading some of the reviews on your books, and they're incredible. And one that really caught my eye and I found to be really funny was it looked like an older gentleman, or he described himself as an older gentleman. And he had a lot of things to say, but it ended on, and I'll quote here, "You're a hell of a writer, but you made me cry in public, you bastard." And I was just thinking, like, there's no higher praise than that, you know? It truly was. And I actually remember that when I don't read reviews. When I first got started, the first 2 or 3 books I published, I would sit and it actually hurt my productivity because I was sitting clicking refresh on the Amazon page.
Right.
Okay, somebody write a review.
Yeah,
and,
feedback.
Exactly. And I had a conversation with another wonderful author, Michael Stephen Fuchs, who does the Risen series.
Oh yeah, I love those too.
Yeah, and he said something to me. I'm trying to remember the context of the conversation, but it was along the lines of, I've had reviews that you would think I shot their dog, stole their wife, and burned their house down.
Yeah, that's a bad review.
Yeah. And I said, so what do you do? And he said, and I still follow this advice today as an author. His advice was, if you have a review that is negative for the sake of being negative, ignore it. It means nothing. But if you have a review that is negative, but it contains constructive criticism, then you've got to shift your mindset and realize that's not a negative review. That's what this person took away. And I thought that was really, really good advice from Michael. And I've kind of taken it a step further along the lines of, you can't please everybody. There's haters out there. They're going to hate. But then, there's some, I've got a lot of terrific fans. And it's funny, that one review that you picked out, I didn't read it. I had a couple of my readers email me and said, oh my God, you got to go check this out. This is just hilarious. And, that if I can bring out an emotion, real emotion in a reader, whatever that emotion is, then I feel like I've done my job as a storyteller.
Absolutely. That's the trick. I mean, we're using kind of code, which is like black marks on a page to evoke real emotion in real people. It's amazing when you can pull it off, and clearly, you're good at it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And, that's where I derive the satisfaction. I think from writing is just when I can bring that out, and whether it inspires somebody to think about something in a way they've never thought about it before, or whatever it is. But if I've brought that emotion out, then I've connected with them at more than an intellectual level. I've connected with them at an emotional level.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think that's even more powerful. The intellectual kind of agreement or understanding, it's key just for communication, but getting it through that, past that guard to the emotional side. I mean, at base level, we're emotional creatures, and it's just such a deep connection.
It truly, truly is. And, as much as I enjoyed that review, and I've had other wonderful reviews, and I've had reviews that have made me laugh. I've had reviews that have made me go, what the hell were you smoking while you were reading my book? But, one thing I want to mention that I think probably has given me the most satisfaction of anything I've done as a writer or as a person. I got an email. This has probably been about 2 months ago now. And it was a young man who was a Marine veteran. And his email started out with, I want to thank you. You saved my life.
Wow, that's a powerful opening there.
It sure was. And I kept reading. And he didn't go into specifics, but what he said in that email was, I was in a very, very dark place that I did not expect to come back from. And a friend of mine loaned me one of your books. And I started reading, and I've read the entire series. And he said, even though I'm very well aware that John Chase, my main character, is fictional, he goes, the determination and drive that character has shown to survive through everything that he's gone through, but he doesn't give up. And he goes, as strange as this sounds, he goes, that brought me back out of that dark place.
Yeah, absolutely. When books connect with you on that kind of emotional level, they can bring you out of a space into a new space, and kind of focus your mind and attention somewhere else for a while, which, can help to, if you're having a hard time in life, it can help pick you up. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I've communicated with him a few times since, and just checked in and made sure everything's good. But I would say that's probably the greatest satisfaction. I mean, how could anything be better than you changed somebody's life? And
absolutely. Yeah, my mom has her kind of like one statement to me growing up was always like, just leave the world a better place than you found it. And it sounds like, obviously with writing such as yours and connecting with people like this gentleman, you're doing exactly that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and never my goal. And let me tell you, what a incredibly humbling experience to sit back and think, where this guy was, and whatever little piece I may have had, or a little part I may have played in helping him move forward. And just my wife Katie likes to, she's always saying that I've got to squeeze my head through every door I pass through. And after that, no, there's no squeezing. It's like just a humbling, wonderful feeling that you've helped somebody else that you weren't even trying, but through your actions or through something you've done that they've been able to keep going.
Has helped them out so deeply. Yeah, it's very different than like, oh, I've earned $10 million this year. That's kind of that you can get maybe a big head syndrome through that, but touching people's lives so personally. Yeah, I mean, I understand where your wife is coming from, and it is there is that kind of funny aspect to it. But it's totally touching and humbling to think like, wow, just these kind of thoughts and conflicts and characterizations I put on a page has made a difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
So different writers come at it from different angles. We have kind of on one side, we have the outliners who plan everything out ahead of time and make sure it goes just according to plan. And on the other extreme, we have like the writing into the dark or the pantsers who just start with a blank page and you figure out everything as you go. Where do you land on that spectrum?
I am 150% on that side of things.
Holy moly. So do you have any idea of what's going to happen in a book when you start it?
Nope.
Oh, that's amazing.
I have a rough idea. Every book, I have a rough idea of where I want to be at the end.
Okay.
I have no clue what's between page 1 and page 400. I just let it go. And there's not a book I have written to date that has not changed dramatically, including the ending of what I originally thought it was going to be as it was in the process of being written. Again, for me, it works. There are, and I know a couple of folks that are also writers, one that's published and one that's trying to finish their first draft. And they are both very structured people, and as such, they've got whiteboards and sticky notes all over their writing space. They've got outlines written, and if it works for them, that's terrific. It just this just happens to be the way it works for me.
Yeah, I think that's I guess part of the challenge or kind of the battle that you have with yourself as a writer is figuring out where you work best on that spectrum. And it sounds like clearly after over what I'm looking at, I think 18 books or so, you've found your method, huh?
Right. Yeah. Well, total chaos. It's worked for me for many, many years. So if something works, don't try to fix it.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at your body of work, and all of your books seem to be involved in the same world. Like obviously the V-Plague books 1 through coming out 16. That's obviously one series, but then you've also kind of branched off and started telling stories from another angle in the same world. Is that right?
Kind of in the same world. I branched off a couple of years ago. The main series, the V-Plague series, is the chronology of John Chase, who's the main character, and everybody around him. And that world has grown and evolved, of course, across 16 books, or it would be pretty boring by now if it hadn't.
Right.
I branched off a couple of years ago. I've always been fascinated by time travel, and I'm a sci-fi geek. If it's sci-fi related, I will probably read it. I will probably watch it. Even bad sci-fi sometimes can be entertaining.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, but so I wanted to do something with time travel, but I didn't want it to be about time travel. I wanted time travel to just simply be a vehicle for the story. So I went off and I wrote a couple of books. This is the 36 series.
Okay.
The first one is called 36, numeral 36, and it's that's derived from their limitation to being able to travel back in time to undo heinous or horrendous events. And they're limited to being able to travel no further than 36 hours back. So there's always a clock ticking.
Awesome. I love the setup.
Yeah. And, The Void is the follow-up to that. And I did a crossover in book 14 and 15 of the series. I kind of teased it probably in book 9 or book 10 that maybe these two worlds might interact, and then I finally brought them together full circle. And I'm not going to say too much more than that for any listeners who I don't want to give any spoilers.
Yeah, of course. No spoiler alert.
Yep, exactly. So I made that decision because I think and there's Dog, the other main character.
Yeah. I was hearing it. There he goes.
Yep. His favorite thing is to scare the living crap out of the FedEx driver. And I think that's what he's doing right now. So he can. Well done, Dog. he can do his thing. Exactly. So I went off to those two books to that. I've kind of brought them into the same world, even though without bringing the whole post-apocalypse scenario into the characters from 36.
Okay.
And kept them separated. And I've just recently completed, and it's up for pre-order right now on Amazon, another book that's called Cold Fall.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Is that also connected? It seemed I wasn't quite sure on that one.
There might be a hint at the end of it, and that's as much as I'm going to give you on that. But the main thrust of the book is I went a little bit more out of current events and politics and conspiracy theories, and I kind of followed the same model that I do of, well, what if this happened? What if these politicians decided to do this? And what if these dishonest people decided to do this?
Wait, hold on. Are you equating politicians with dishonest people? Hold up here.
I never said that.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Maybe I just understood you incorrectly. Yes. That's me coming to the table, I think.
Yeah, there you go. But I wanted to tell this story. I didn't want this to be a Washington, D.C. political story, which it is most certainly not. I wanted to tell this story from the perspective of the people that are impacted by the actions that are coming out of the conspiracy. So it's actually, and this is my first foray into storytelling from the perspective of an 18-year-old boy. Okay. Whose life was just shattered, turned upside down. And in the span of the book, this, I remember being 18 and being shallow and vapid, and all I cared about was who's the cutest girl and who's this and who's that. And so I wanted to take this and show his progression, his maturing, as he experiences the real world. Of what the real world could be. Right. So I kind of set up, okay, if this happens, this is worst case scenario. All of this stuff is happening, and I'm just going to drop this 18-year-old kid into the middle of it, and let's see how he evolves. And personally, I think it came out well, but the truth will be in the pudding when the reviews start coming in.
Yeah, it always is. What's your kind of method or technique for writing people that are different from you, different sex, different religion, whatever, just far different from your own perspective? How do you get into their heads?
Every character I write is either a real person who I have worked with or known in my life, or they're an amalgam of several real people. So, Katie is just Katie. I'm married to her. I know how to write her. I pretty much can tell you I'm usually always in trouble, so it's easy to write where I'm always in trouble.
Yeah, right.
And I'll give you a dirty little secret that I've never told anybody.
Oh, that's what we like. Bring it out.
Here we go. And I wait till close to the end to do this. Rachel, the character of Rachel, is actually Katie.
Okay, at a different stage in life, or what do you mean?
As far as the personality, as far as the character herself, as far as her values, personality, how she's going to react to things, what she would say, what she would do. I based Rachel on Katie because when I first started writing, I never intended that Katie and John would be reunited.
Okay.
So I kind of had to scramble a little bit when I went down the path of, okay, I'm going to bring Katie in. And all of a sudden I've got, in my head as I'm writing this, I've got two Katies.
Right. You've kind of got two significant others to John.
Exactly. So that's my dirty little secret. And then everybody else, there's some great characters. I think my favorite character in the series that I've written was Martinez. Just a smart-ass, badass helicopter pilot. She didn't take crap from anybody, and I'm not going to name the person that she is modeled after because I guarantee you she knows that. I don't need to give her a name.
Oh, great. Yeah, she's out there. That brings up the question, is John Chase himself, the protagonist of your series, is he based on you and your experiences? Because you mentioned being in the armed forces, and obviously John, ex-Delta Force, has got a lot of experience there as well. Are you guys connected in some way?
John is me.
John is you. Okay. Very connected then.
Yes. If you're reading one of my books and John says something offensive, you'd hear the same offensive thing come out of me if we were sitting having a beer. The one character that is not real, that is somebody that I just strictly pulled out of thin air and imagined, is Roach. And I don't know if you've gotten far enough into the series.
I think I've gotten a hint of what Roach is and does.
Yeah, and if you've only gotten the hint, it gets much worse.
Oh no!
Yeah, I will say, fortunately, I've never known a Roach, and if I did know a Roach, I didn't know they were that type of person.
Right. Yeah. From what I understand of him, that's not the type of person you would kind of accept in your life.
No, that's this goes beyond the pale, and quite frankly, I questioned as I wrote a couple of the books, and some of the things I had him involved in. I questioned going down that road. You're
like, is this going too far, or kind of that kind of thing?
Exactly, and it's like I'm never one. If I offend somebody with something I write, oh well, sorry. So I wasn't worried about that so much as it's kind of difficult to explain, but it was almost like I'm going to that dark place that this character is coming from in my head, and I don't like it.
Yeah, there is, as writers, you put your own emotions in that space, and it's not fun to always be there.
Exactly. It's you sit back after you've written some of the things that I wrote that I had Roach doing or thinking or trying to do, and I'd sit back afterwards and I would like, why does my mind even go there? This is just twisted.
Well, I think that's the dichotomy of human nature, I guess. There's the light and the dark.
Yes. Yep, there truly is.
Well, we're getting near the end of the show, and that could mean only one thing. Welcome to the Rorschach round, where we use ambiguously odd questions to delve deeper into the minds of these amazing authors. Let's get started. I do want to ask you just a few kind of mind-probing, silly questions that, who knows, listeners out there may like to enjoy.
Those kind of questions, I make no promises you won't get an R-rated answer.
Oh, hey, go for R-rated. We'll put the E wherever we need to on the little iTunes podcast thing.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
Right. So here's one. Have you ever killed someone in a book that made you mad in real life?
No.
Oh, you're a good person, Dirk.
No, I'm not. But
okay.
The answer is no, I haven't.
Here's one that delves into the psychology a bit. So if you could be any animal, what would you choose to be?
It's funny you asked that because there's one of the books, and I cannot remember which one it was, that I wrote a paragraph, and I'm talking about if there is such a thing as reincarnation, I want to come back as a dog. You just lay around all day. You get fed when you want to get fed. You've got a pretty good life. And at the end of that paragraph, I remembered that dogs get neutered.
Uh-oh.
So I wasn't too wild about that idea. So if we could do without the neutering, I think I would pick a dog.
All right. So maybe I think you would want to be a dog that does dog shows, because at least I know for sure they don't get neutered, right? I think that's part of the contract.
That is, yes, they definitely want them to reproduce. I don't know, the dog show.
Yeah, I guess that takes it in a different direction, right?
Yeah, if I was going to be a dog, I would rather be either a military or police dog. Just let's go have fun. Let's go get the bad guy.
And get the job done, yeah?
Yep, exactly.
What if you were the last person in the world? What would you do? What would you do to pass the time? What would a day look like?
The last human being on the planet.
Yeah. Would you just end it, or would you find something?
I cannot imagine ending it. The idea of ending it, no matter how much pain you're in or how lonely you are, is just so antithetical to me as a person.
Right.
No religious overtones or anything. It's just not in my makeup.
Now, there's an element of surrender there.
Right. The first thought that pops into my head, and that's what I'll say, is I would find a motorcycle and I would just start tooling around the country. And I've probably seen 80% of the country and 50% of the world. I want to go see the rest that I haven't seen.
Awesome. Well, Dirk, I've got about a zillion questions here. We could talk forever, but I did promise that it would be around this time limit. But before we go, I wanted to find out, and I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit before, do you have any upcoming projects or things that listeners and readers could be on the lookout for?
I have got so many projects that are jotted down on sticky notes that are all over my office, that I don't know where I'm going to go next. I'm constantly being asked, when is the V-Plague series going to end? And my answer from probably since book 3 came out is still the same today as it was then, as whenever the story ends.
Yeah.
I've not drawn a line in the sand. When the story ends, or when I no longer enjoy immersing myself in this world that I've fashioned, then the series is going to end. But there's some good stuff coming. I've got on my calendar something I'm going to start soon, that it's another John Chase backstory. And I'm hoping I'm going to be able to put this one into a full-length novel, not into a novella. And I think I'm probably over the next few months, I'm going to kind of move into the mode of fleshing out some of that backstory, because I'm always getting questions. Well, where did Dog come from? These other characters, how did they survive until they encountered John? So I'm gonna kind of take myself back in time a little bit.
You're building out the world there for kind of these other characters.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going, and that's my intention at the moment. As I start writing it, I may go, "Oh, this is crap." Which there's at least 4 nearly full-length books that have just been. They're sitting in the recycle bin on my computer.
Yeah. So you haven't let them go yet, but they're not ready for prime time.
Oh, they're not even close to ready for prime time.
Yeah.
So that's my immediate projects. Long term, I've got some stuff going with some other authors who were not ready to release any information, but there's some names that would really excite the readers. And we're looking at doing not a compilation. I think compilations of groups of authors are overdone.
You mean like that's anthologies, like small short stories all packaged together or something?
Yeah. Well, what I'm referring to, our concept, and I'll give a little bit of a teaser on the concept, is we're going to approach a story from our own angle. We're not going to write together. We're going to each write our part of that world and our part of that story.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a really fascinating kind of approach.
I think it could be really cool because you're going to see, the readers are going to see the same world, but delivered from 3 different authors.
Wow.
And I think it could be really exciting. And, we had intended to get that started this summer. And everybody's got obligations, everybody's got deadlines to meet, and that's our stumbling block right now, is coordinating how we're going to get this done.
Oh, man. Well, that sounds super cool, and that's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye out for. And speaking of that, where would be a good place for people to find out more about you and what you do? Probably
the best place, I've got 2 big presences on the internet. So my website is dirkpatton.com.
Okay.
Go there. I try to keep that updated. Also Facebook. So it's facebook.com. And then the page is Fear the Plague.
Fear the Plague. Okay.
Fear the Plague. And so Facebook is where I am most normally active. And I'll apologize to the readers right now. Sometimes I'll vanish off of Facebook and vanish off of social media for a month to 6 weeks at a time. But as everybody knows, social media can be a time suck. And when I'm into writing and trying to get a book finished, it's really hard to shift gears and go be social.
Maybe then everybody out there can take it that if they don't see you a while on Facebook, then they know something big's coming.
That's either that or the Grim Reaper finally caught up with me. One of the two.
Well, everyone will hope for the former. Yeah, let's say that.
I hope so.
Dirk, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today, and I just wanted to thank you for letting us take a peek inside your brain and your storytelling, and we would love to have you back on the show down the road to check in on how things are going for you in the future.
Well, Will, thanks for having me. Thanks for putting this together. I've enjoyed our conversation, and I would love to come back sometime in the future when we've got some more exciting news to talk about.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dirk Patton. I know I did, and thanks to Dirk again for coming onto the show. You can find the links that Dirk mentioned in the show notes for today at www.williamod.com/1. That's the number 1. That's it for today. If you would like to be sure to never miss a show and always have them immediately available on your device of choice, you can subscribe by going to www.williamod.com/iTunes. And if you enjoyed the show, I would so appreciate a rating and review on iTunes. They both help with store visibility, and they also let other listeners know if this show is something that they might be interested in checking out. And I've made it easy to access both of those by going to the same link on my website, www.williamod.com/iTunes. That will have a link there that you can jump over to either subscribe and or maybe all 3, rate and review the show. So I would so appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's it for now. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the OMG Books Show. You can find out more at www.williamod.com.